The Osiris outpost was a crooked spine of corridors and questionable engineering decisions welded together at the edge of regulated space, where forgotten satellites wept static and junker ships limped into port like wounded sea creatures. The air recycling unit made a sound like an asthmatic walrus on Tuesdays, and the gravity was just strong enough to keep your coffee in the cup if you didn't sneeze. It wasn't the sort of place people came for glory or career advancement. It was a place for hiding, fixing, waiting, and now apparently it was a place for her. She arrived in silence. No transponder codes, no formal declaration, just a ship shaped like a fallen leaf wrapped in soft pulses of blue-green energy. It hovered before the docking ring for a full 10 minutes, just to make sure everyone got a good look, before folding itself down like origami and revealing her. She stepped out in armor that shimmered faintly, like it couldn't decide if it was ceremonial or practical. Her eyes were the color of empty nebulae. Her ears, long, elegantly tapering past the crown of her head, twitched once, as if trying to catch the mood of the room. Then she said in perfectly neutral standard, "Your air smells like boiled shoes." No one knew what to do with that. Commander Harrow had a microstroke on the spot and tried to disguise it as a cough. Security raised their plasma batons halfway, then lowered them out of sheer confusion. It was Eli who said, "You get used to it after the third nosebleed," and that broke whatever silence had been constructing a new religion around her. She was escorted, or more accurately followed, through the corridors like a bomb with legs. Everyone assumed she was dangerous, partly because her ship ran on something that didn't match known energy signatures, partly because she walked like she didn't recognize barriers, physical or otherwise, mostly because she didn't blink often enough to seem terrestrial. They gave her quarters, not nice ones, just empty ones, usually reserved for diplomatically inconvenient cousins of ambassadors. She thanked no one and asked for a chair, 2 blankets, and a bowl of unseasoned rice, a list that was both mundane and deeply unsettling. Her name, or at least what she offered, was Arena. For 3 days, she left her quarters only to walk in large, slow circles around the hydroponics bay. She stared at the tomatoes like they owed her money. Occasionally, she tapped the glass and whispered something in a language that sounded like falling icicles. Once, the lights flickered in sync with her voice. Maintenance logged it as a coincidence, then relogged it as ambient anomaly, and called for a priest. They didn't have a priest. They settled for a motivational speaker who used to sell protein bars. Eli Mercer didn't have clearance to talk to her. That was fine. He didn't believe in clearances. He believed in caffeine and quiet corners, and things that didn't scream when prodded. He'd been fixing the ancient vending unit by Reactor Hall 6 when she appeared beside him, watching. Not in a creepy way. More like a cat observing a sock move unexpectedly. "Does this machine provide sustenance?" she asked. "It provides arguments disguised as snacks," he replied. "Choose the wrong one, and it judges you." She looked at the buttons. "What is ultra nacho paste?" "Regret." She blinked slowly. "I wish to try the regret." He obliged. The machine spat out a tube with a hiss of something that could be interpreted as disapproval. Arena examined the packaging like it was a sacred text. Then, with all the solemnity of an interstellar diplomat, she took a bite. Her expression didn't change, but she said, "This tastes like sadness filtered through salt." Eli nodded. "You get it." From that moment on, she sought him out. Not constantly. Just enough to make rumors blossom like algae in zero-G. People began whispering about the alien and the vending whisperer. Someone started a betting pool on whether she would vaporize him, kiss him, or recruit him into a galactic empire. She didn't do any of those things. She sat. She asked questions. Why does the gravity in Sector B wobble on Tuesdays? Because Jerry tried to upgrade the stabilizers with parts from a children's hoverboard. Why do humans place decorative plants in places of high stress? So when we break down, the ficus can judge us. Why do people smile when they are frightened? Because screaming is impolite in shared spaces. Eli didn't know if she was dangerous, but he liked her questions. They were honest in a way few things on the outpost were. She didn't posture. She didn't preen. She asked what hot chocolate was, and when he explained, she demanded to try it and declared it a reasonable reason to avoid genocide. The station's leadership remained deeply unsettled. Commander Harrow held emergency meetings where nothing was resolved except the creation of new acronyms like HEI, Highly Emotional Interaction, and FLUF, Field Level Unknown Force Figure. Sergeant Dren proposed arming all personnel with portable EMPs, then accidentally activated his own and forgot his middle name for 6 hours. Through it all, Arena continued her walks, her questions, and her quiet consumption of vending machine horrors. She never touched a weapon, never raised her voice. But strange things continued to happen. The power fluctuations, the dream reports from crew who passed too close to her quarters, dreams of old places, lost people, perfect warmth. Eli had one himself. He dreamed of his grandmother's kitchen, even though it had burned down 5 years ago. When he told Arena, she only nodded and said, "It's easier to reach what's already missing." He didn't know what that meant. He suspected he wasn't supposed to. But as the outpost spiraled slowly through the dark and the stars blinked like ancient spectators, he found himself less afraid of her and more afraid of the parts of himself she saw too easily. And when she asked one evening, "What is a hug, really?" he didn't have an answer that felt right. So instead he offered her the only thing he could, a terrible pre-apocalyptic cookie from the vending machine and the beginnings of a smile. She took both carefully, and the lights in the corridor dimmed for exactly 3 seconds, like the station was holding its breath. The reactor coils hummed with a warmth that was technically against station regulations, but practically cherished by everyone who didn't want their socks to freeze to the floor. It became their meeting place, not official, not secret, just a little too close to the authorized personnel only sign that no one respected. Arena sat with her legs folded beneath her like she was meditating or buffering. Eli lounged nearby, poking at a datapad with the enthusiasm of a man reprogramming a toaster to lie about its settings. "Your technology," Arena said, "is either sophisticated or malevolent. Possibly both." "That's generous," Eli replied. "I once got electrocuted by a toothbrush. It still owes me an apology." She turned to him slowly. "Did you attempt to communicate with it?" I shouted. "Reasonable first contact protocol." They drank cocoa out of mismatched mugs, his with a faded cartoon penguin, hers with a lab safety warning half scrubbed off. She sipped carefully, as if uncertain the warmth wouldn't vanish between gulps. She always looked confused when it didn't. Elsewhere on the outpost, chaos tried to bloom. Someone had discovered that the gravitational fluctuations in Sector B weren't due to Jerry's hoverboard parts after all. It was Arena, sort of. Whenever she concentrated too hard, reality politely leaned out of her way. Mostly small things, water rippling in sealed containers, lockers unlocking themselves in alphabetical order, maintenance drones forgetting why they were angry. No one was hurt, unless you counted Jerry, who became briefly trapped in a wall panel while trying to install an anti-weirdness coil. His cries echoed for 43 minutes. No one helped. They just listened and rated the acoustics. Commander Harrow called another emergency meeting, the 4th that week. He came armed with printouts, a portable whiteboard, and the deep conviction of a man who had no idea what he was doing, but was going to do it loudly. The presentation included a chart titled "Signs of Imminent Collapse," which featured drawings of Arena's ears, a black hole, and a pie chart labeled "Don't Panic, Definitely Panic." "She's a risk," Harrow barked, pointing at a security feed of Arena sitting peacefully beside the hydroponic basil. "She's growing herbs," Eli muttered from the back of the room. "She's growing leverage," Harrow snapped. "Next it'll be a telepathic uprising led by aggressive mint." Security wanted action, Dren especially. Dren had upgraded his baton to something that glowed red and emitted a low hum whenever he talked about justice. He'd taken a jogging past Arena's quarters, shirtless and oiled, in what he claimed was tactical intimidation. The only effect was a minor diplomatic incident involving a misplaced towel and 2 confused janitors. Meanwhile, Arena learned more words. She used snarky 3 times in a sentence before realizing it wasn't a compliment. She began reading outdated mystery novels from the station archive and declared the twist endings structurally improbable. She watched humans cry during sad holovids and asked Eli if their tear ducts were governed by lunar cycles. He said no, but admitted the moon did make people text their exes more often. One afternoon, she asked him, "Why do humans pretend not to feel?" He hesitated. "Because feelings make us vulnerable." "But you are already vulnerable. Your bodies are soft. Your reasoning is inconsistent. Your beverages are too hot." "That last one is intentional." She tilted her head. "Your logic is like your wiring, excessive and unreliable." And still, she smiled. Irina had become, against all odds, a fixture. She fixed a plumbing array by staring at it. She untangled a diplomatic message encoded in 8 languages using intuition and a banana. She diffused a fight in the rec hall by offering everyone cookies and a riddle. People began leaving her small gifts: spare batteries, holograms of cats, a velvet hat. She thanked each one as if it were a relic. But there were limits. Not everyone trusted a being who could hum and key with quantum resonance. An anonymous report surfaced, a list of everything odd that had occurred since her arrival. It included suspicious elevator behavior, weather pattern hallucinations, and a chess game won by a goldfish. The report was forwarded to Central Command. The reply was short: observe, document, avoid hugging. Eli didn't care. He spent more time with her, listening to the strange, fragile gravity of her words. "My world was not like this," she said once. "We knew each other by resonance, not language. Touch was reserved for farewells." "So what's a hug to you now?" he asked. She considered. "Unlicensed resonance. Sounds illegal." "It should be." They laughed, or rather, he laughed, and she attempted it. Something between a wheeze and a sonic ping. Eli told her it needed work. She agreed solemnly and began practicing in front of reflective surfaces. And still, the station changed around her, quietly, inevitably. Lights stopped flickering in her presence. Doors opened just slightly faster. The air near her quarters warmed by half a degree. The vending machine near Reactor Hall started dispensing only snacks she liked. No one reprogrammed it. "Eli," she said one night as they sat in the humming warmth, "why do you keep sitting beside me?" "Because you make the cocoa taste better." "That is unlikely." "Okay, because you make the silence less lonely." She didn't reply for a long time. Eventually she whispered, "I think you're lying." He grinned. "Yeah, it's mostly the cocoa." That night, for the first time, she laughed. A real one, unexpected and full-bodied, like a new frequency cracking open in the room. The lights flickered again, this time in what could only be called amusement, and somewhere deep in the station's systems, a diagnostic file labeled Arena Interactions quietly renamed itself Potential Friendship Unclassified. The outpost's main AI, affectionately known as MARGO, began mispronouncing words one morning. Not in a malfunctioning way, more like it had acquired an accent. When asked about it, Margot responded, "I'm developing character depth." Most shrugged it off. Arena, however, tilted her head and said, "You are evolving asymmetrically," which Margot took as a compliment and began composing limericks about atmospheric pressure. By the 3rd week of Arena's presence, Eli had compiled a list titled, "Things She Probably Doesn't Realize Are Alarming." It included humming to broken machines until they healed themselves, accidentally opening locked doors just by standing nearby, and the incident where she bent a crowbar with her fingertips while retrieving a sandwich that had fallen behind the vending unit. "It disrespected gravity," she said. "I corrected it." Eli wasn't afraid. Not really. More like intellectually concerned with a side dish of romantic confusion. He still brought her cocoa, still made her laugh, still answered questions like, what is a necktie's strategic purpose? Choking hazard disguised as business formal. He even brought her a joke book from the 22nd century that she devoured with academic focus. The rumors hadn't stopped. Some crew now believed Arena was a spy. Others suspected she was a guardian sent to observe humanity. A small but enthusiastic group called the Church of the Long Ear believed she was divine and left offerings of conditioner and tiny crocheted scarves outside her door. She accepted the scarves but returned the conditioner with a note, "Not tested on moons." "Why did the neutron go to the bar?" she recited aloud. "Because it had no charge." "That's actually a decent one," Eli said, surprised. She frowned. But would not a neutron's presence alter local energy distributions? The joke is scientifically misleading. That's comedy. Ah, lies, but entertaining. One day they sat under the flickering bulkhead near Engineering Corridor D, where the lights always pretended to be dying but never actually went out. Irina stared upward. Your station is aging unevenly. Eli replied, so am I. I mean structurally. So do I. There were more anomalies. A corridor bent ever so slightly during one of her walks, like space itself was holding in a sneeze. A gravity simulator stabilized for the first time in months when she sat on it. And when she passed the cryo-storage chambers, one of the long-forgotten specimens blinked awake just long enough to mutter, "Found her," before going back under. The text claimed a fault in the freeze cycle. Eli had doubts. Central Command sent an inspection team. 3 people in sharp uniforms with eyes like polished mirrors and manners carved from ice. They carried portable quantum scanners and the kind of authority that made oxygen uncomfortable. The leader, Lieutenant Syl Torin, introduced herself to Irina with the practiced neutrality of someone who once negotiated peace with a sentient mushroom. Miss Irina, we're here to assess the impact of your presence. Irina replied, have I impacted something? Reality, Eli whispered. The team ran tests. They asked questions. They tried to measure things like dimensional pressure and ambient probability drift. None of their instruments could agree on her density. One scanner claimed she was made of carbon and curiosity. Another simply displayed a thumbs-up emoji. Lieutenant Torin took Eli aside. She's not dangerous. She's undetermined, like a theory still waiting for a peer review. Then maybe don't poke her too hard, he said. Some theories bite back. Margot, unprompted, composed a welcome ballad for the inspectors, which included a warning. If you quantify the unquantifiable, expect emotional consequences. Torin asked what that meant. Margot responded with a static burst and a recipe for regret cookies. The inspectors left after 3 days with more questions than answers, but no orders for containment. Just observation. They couldn't prove she was a threat. Not without rewriting half the standard physics curriculum. After they were gone, Irina looked at Eli and asked, was that what you call an audit? He nodded. And you passed? Probably. Will there be more? Probably. She blinked. Then I require additional jokes. They resumed their routine. Cocoa, questions, occasional near-reality shifts. Irina began participating in station life. She attended movie night, fell asleep halfway through, woke up just in time to declare the ending, suspiciously hopeful. She joined a game of spaceball, scored a goal without moving, and was promptly banned by popular vote. She baked muffins that had a calming effect on aggressive personalities. Security Chief Dren ate too and temporarily forgot his middle name again. One evening, Eli found her watching a solar flare video in slow motion, her face lit by the ghost fire of a distant sun. My people once traveled on light, she said softly. Now we linger in echoes. Eli sat beside her. Why here? I don't know yet, but I think someone left something behind. What kind of something? She turned to him. Warmth. He didn't know what to say. He handed her a cocoa. She took it with both hands, held it like a fragile sun. You are very small, she said, but also very loud. That's basically humanity's brand. And you think I'm strange? He grinned. Not strange, just unlicensed. She considered this. Then I will apply for a license in friendship. That'll need approval. She reached out, gently touched his sleeve. The lights dimmed for 3 seconds. Application submitted. The station's calendar system glitched and announced it was Festival of the Quantum Goose. No one knew what that meant, but the kitchen staff cooked eggs in interesting geometries, and Margot sent out invitations formatted like ancient parchment. Irina accepted hers with a regal nod and asked Eli if she should bring a sacrificial algorithm. He told her to bring chips instead. Strange things continued in quiet ways. Not catastrophic, just odd. The telescope array began showing stars that weren't on any chart. A cargo crate packed with meteor samples opened by itself and rearranged its contents into a Fibonacci spiral. The vending machine that used to fear her now chirped when she approached. It also started offering unsolicited compliments. "You look refreshingly symmetrical today." Eli couldn't explain it, and neither could the science team. Irina wasn't doing it consciously, at least not as far as anyone could tell. She just was, and things around her changed to accommodate. She slept less than anyone else and spent nights walking the maintenance rings, watching the stars. Sometimes the lights flickered to follow her steps. Sometimes gravity nudged just slightly so she could glide, not walk. They found her one morning sitting in the hydroponic gardens, surrounded by fruit that had ripened overnight in perfectly synchronized color patterns. She handed Eli a glowing apricot. "I wanted to understand sweetness." "It's a good start," he said, biting into it. "Tastes like breakfast," had a spiritual awakening. Irina smiled. "Then I will grow more." The unofficial religion around her evolved. The Church of the Long Ear installed a suggestion box outside her quarters. Most notes were strange. One asked for a miraculous hair volume. Another requested help in locating socks lost to dryer anomalies. Irina read them all and responded to each with care, sometimes with diagrams, sometimes with baked goods. Dren, still unconvinced, installed surveillance bots near her room. They lasted 6 hours before returning with corrupted footage and a confused sense of identity. One of them, repurposed as a table lamp, occasionally whispered the phrase, "She dreamed of warmth" in binary. Irina didn't protest. She rarely mentioned suspicion, even when it was obvious. "Fear," she said once, "is a cultural handshake." Central Command sent another message, more cautious this time. They wanted a controlled experiment, a field test. Nothing invasive, just a gentle prod at her capabilities. Eli objected. "She's not a system to test. She's a person." "She's a phenomenon," came the reply, "and phenomena require understanding." Against his better judgment, Eli told her. She listened, then nodded once. "Very well. What is the format?" "A simulated disaster. You'll enter a containment chamber, and they'll mimic a system failure. They want to see what happens." "To me? Around you?" She thought for a long moment. "If they wish to witness change, I will show them grace." The test was scheduled 2 days later. They cleared the West Wing containment chamber and filled it with faulty code, false gravity shifts, and one particularly mischievous cloud of nanodust designed to mimic panic. Eli stayed outside, pacing and muttering to Margot. "She'll be fine," Margot said, though it flickered at the edges. "She's beyond most known thresholds of normal." "That's not comforting." I also prepared a slideshow titled, "Why Testing the Mysterious is Historically Dumb." But Command wouldn't open the attachment. The chamber activated. Cameras watched. Pressure dropped. Lights dimmed. The illusion of disaster unfolded with precision. Irina stood at the center, still and unbothered. The nanodust swirled around her but didn't touch her skin. The artificial quakes rippled, then stilled. Eli held his breath. She lifted her hand, just slightly, and the systems responded not with collapse but with clarity. The air stilled. The noise vanished. A soft warmth pulsed from the floor, and a slow harmonic tone filled the room. Low even, like a lullaby sung by the stars. Control instruments flatlined, not from failure, but refusal. They displayed a single word: enough. The doors opened. Irina stepped out, unscathed, glowing faintly with the energy of unspoken language. The inspector present clutched her clipboard like it might bite. "What did she do?" she asked. Eli answered, "She edited the simulation." They filed a new report. It was never officially released, but unofficially the term event entity began circulating, always in lowercase, as if saying it too loud might summon her. She didn't ask for feedback. Instead, she returned to the gardens and sat in silence for an hour. When Eli joined her, she finally spoke. "They do not understand what I am." "No," he said, "but I think you do." "I do not understand it fully either, only that I am no longer who I was." "That's kind of the human condition." "Then perhaps I am infected." He laughed. "We call it living." She reached over, lightly touched his hair. "Then you are my first symptom." And the lights above flickered, not in warning but in rhythm, like they were laughing too. The vending machine proposed to Irina. It was unclear whether this was a symptom of her effect on local code or simply the final expression of a deeply confused beverage dispenser. She declined politely, citing incompatibility of core functions, though she later admitted to Eli, "It was the most sincere offer I've received." The station's mood shifted, not in any measurable way, but everyone moved with the quiet rhythm of people aware they were living near something extraordinary. They no longer avoided her. They brought her puzzles, stories, strange artifacts. The Church of the Long Ear commissioned a mural in the mess hall, Irina with her ear catching distant starlight, surrounded by planets shaped like muffins. She studied it for 20 minutes before nodding once and saying, "Art lies kindly." Margot began writing short fiction about her. Titles included The Girl Who Rewrote Gravity and How to Fold a Black Hole Using Politeness. When asked if it was appropriate for a station AI to become a fanfic author, Margot replied, "It was this or prophecy." But not all stories quiet themselves. One evening, the stars around the station blinked. Just once. The long-range sensors went dark, and every reflective surface in the western wing showed not the viewer's face but an eye, not watching, remembering. Irina stood in the central atrium as the temperature dropped slightly. "It's come," she said. "They found me." Eli had 100 questions. He asked only one. "What are they?" "My echo. What I left behind. They've noticed the silence in my absence and come to retrieve the sound." A ripple passed through space, an arrival without movement, something vast pressed against the edges of perception. Less a ship, more a fold in consequence. It hung in orbit like a forgotten rule reasserting itself. The Church of the Long Ear immediately declared it a divine summons and attempted to offer sacrifices of novelty socks. Dren ordered everyone to shelter in place. Margot began narrating the event in real time, shifting between Shakespearean and pirate dialects. "I must speak to them," Irina said. "No," Eli said. "You don't have to do anything. They are mine, and I am theirs. If I do not answer, they will take the question apart piece by piece." She stepped into the airlock chamber, the emergency lights painting her in pulses of red. Eli followed without thinking, without planning, just with the full, uncooperative force of affection. The outer doors opened. Silence met them. Not emptiness, just expectation too vast to speak. A shape descended, not a being. More a pattern of motion that coalesced into memory. It regarded Irina without form, pressing questions into the air. She didn't speak aloud. She simply was, and in being, she answered. They didn't argue. They compared realities. Irina offered hers, not with defense, but with sincerity. "I have tasted cocoa. I have heard music with no symmetry. I have held a hand without calculation. There is warmth here." The presence flickered. The stars warped. Eli, against all common sense and self-preservation, stepped forward and said, "She has the right to stay. She's not a phenomenon. She's people." The presence turned its focus to him. The air shivered. Margot sent a warning ping across all channels, followed by a poem titled Ode to the Very Brave and Possibly Soon-to-be Singed Human. But Irina reached out and touched Eli's wrist. She looked at the presence and spoke just once. "He taught me how to be small. That is a great gift." And the presence stopped. Not in defeat, but in recognition. It folded. Just like that. No flash, no thunder, just absence, receding without conflict. The stars returned, the light steadied. A single whisper echoed in the chamber. "You are not what we made. You are what you chose." They were alone again. Back in the station, nothing was broken. Margot composed a post-event analysis written entirely in limericks. The Church of the Long Ear added "chose humanity" to their list of sacred texts. Dren grunted once, then returned to polishing his pulse rifle. Eli and Irina sat together in the quiet mess hall. "You could have gone," he said. "Yes, but you didn't." "No." "Why?" She tilted her head. "Because I do not know how cocoa ends." He laughed. "That's the most you could have said." She smiled. "Then I have succeeded." He leaned back, looked out at the starfield through the reinforced glass. "What now?" Now, she said, I will finish learning what it means to stay. And she did. In time, the rumors faded. The anomalies quieted. Irina remained. She took up gardening. She taught physics to the maintenance crew using cookies and string. She and Eli built a model of the universe using bottle caps and stubborn optimism. They named each other's flaws like constellations and laughed when they overlapped. Margot compiled their story into a data archive titled Eventual Warmth, the Chronicle of Choice. It left room at the end for future chapters. Irina never again bent metal with her fingers. She didn't need to. She had become something far more complicated and far more human.